And then I take a two-handed weapon out of the vault, and it's like, oh, poggers, a 623 myth track weapon. Oh wow, I already have 636 sword and shield. I can upgrade this thing. I've got my crest discount. Oh, I need 1,400 valor stones to upgrade this thing all the way up, and I'm at 0, even though I was capped yesterday. I had 2,000 yesterday. I have 0 today. I need 1,400. What's the best way to get 1,400 valor stones? Well, that's a great question. You can go do this world quest to get 26 valor stones. That was the point when I broke my monitor. Welcome to episode 47 of the PoddyC. This week we have a new patch announcement that has a new ring. Stop me if you've heard this one before. It's a ring with 3 sockets, and they are cool special gems that go into it, and it's going to be powerful.
How do you acquire this?
It's in patch 10.0.7. We don't know the full details yet.
And it's specifically on the new island that they're releasing in patch 11.0.7, which is eerily familiar.
Yeah, that's the in-game news here. It's caused some consternation among people I know because it's somewhat similar. I don't know if you guys have drawn this connection, but it's somewhat similar to the Onyx Amulet ring that came out in Dragonflight.
No, it's completely different.
No, there's a few things that are actually somewhat similar between these. Like, they're both rings. They both have those 3 socket things. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm actually kind of not as much of a doomer on this as maybe I would have expected me to be, even, because I hated the Onyx Amulet. I thought the thing was really stupid. But the things that made me hate that, we don't know if they'll be true about this as well. Like, my things with that was just the gems were stupid. The balancing was like weird and bad, and then they like didn't have a clear goal for how well, or they had a goal for how powerful they wanted it to be, and then it launched that in a state that did not match that goal, and that was frustrating and stupid. And then it got obviously changed several times in ways that it was obviously going to get changed, and that was stupid and annoying. So that hasn't happened yet with this one. Might it happen? Yeah, but we don't know yet. So, and it's also got a cool. It's got a cool transmog. It's a ring transmog. Like, that's sick. I think that's cool.
What does that mean?
Like, you can actually see the ring on your character.
You can actually see the ring on your character. Yeah. Which I saw that in the announcement video, and I was like, oh, that's like cool, I guess. But apparently that's just like not a thing. Like, normally that doesn't happen. You can't see the ring.
Yeah. I think that's badass. I think that was another problem I had with Onyx Amulet, was just like, it was just like all these effects were like, oh, a swirl of air blasts your target, and then you just didn't see anything, and you just look on details and it's like, oh yeah, Primordial Stones is doing 30%
it's like your #1 damage. I think if I remember correctly, healers, it was so good for healers specifically if your goal was to do damage, which is an important thing healers can do, and you don't even have to think. It's not like, I think healers have some aversion to doing damage, but it's usually never the damage that just happens automatically, right? It's the damage where it's like how much I have to barter between casting damage and healing spells. That's not what we're talking about at all. Your character just did a ton of extra damage. I think it would have been this expansion. They would have worn the Onyx Amulet like right now. I am pretty sure, if it wasn't nerfed from what it was. But it does. I am interested to ask you guys, like, how much you guys look forward to this kind of content. Like, this is the main departure, right? It's not only is it continuing Dragonflight's philosophy, it is almost a direct replica of 10.0.7 in the first patch of Dragonflight. But this is what you would have gotten a couple years ago, right? You would have gotten Erebar Palace, you'd have gotten a Mythic Plus dungeons. You would have gotten, actually, I think for a couple of those expansions, you wouldn't even get new dungeons. You would just have the same dungeons for 2 years. And then you'd get a new Mythic Plus season, you get a new Arena season, and then 6 to 8 months later, you would get a new raid. Now, how it is, you get the dungeon, you get the Mythic Plus, you get 8 new Mythic Plus dungeons, you get a Mythic or an Arena season, and then you get an 11.0.5 where they came out with an entire raid. Right? There's class tuning all the time. There's actually less class tuning now than the beginning of Dragonflight, which is maybe an interesting topic. Like, significantly less. At least the amount of like weekly iterations there's been. And then also, like, you're in 11.0.7, you're getting an entire new zone. So within one patch, you're getting some kind of major content drop. Sometimes it's a raid. Sometimes it's literally a new spec. Sometimes it's just like a bunch of like iterative changes. Later in the expansion, we saw Plunderstorm and stuff like that. And then in 11.0.7s, there seems to be 0.7s every patch. You're getting you're getting a new zone, which is I don't think really targeted at us, which is kind of why I'm asking you guys this. I think it's more of like a collector's thing. Um, like and we're getting obviously like the annual or whatever. So anyways, I just want to ask both of you, like, do you look forward to this? How much time did you spend in the 10.0.7 version of what this looks like it'll be?
Dorky, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I feel like it's a whole lot of nothing burger for me. Well, unless it's like something that I actually need. So kind of like the ring, which I probably will end up needing. I don't mind the ring. You said people were dooming on the ring earlier, but
People will doom on everything.
That's true.
I
think
I
that's
haven't
true,
particularly seen dooming on the ring, unless except for people pointing out that they're like, that's the exact same thing they did last time. Not like I hate that, right?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, it is funny though because the tank meta is the exact same too. We started with Prow Warrior, it was OP, and then like now we're shifting over to Prop Pally after getting multiple buffs. It's a direct repeat of Dragonflight.
Oh
But
yeah.
I don't mind the ring. I think the ring is fine. However, I do wish there was more lingering, meaningful content. For me, at least. It feels like all the content they release now is just like, oh, there's a new quest chain. There's some new casual content, you know, like, oh, there's some new transmogs you can go collect over in BRD or whatever. And I think that's great and all, but I definitely want something that, like, I care about or that, like, sticks around. Something for people who are doing
What would that be?
any level of mythic. Something like if BRD had, like, a mythic difficulty, you know, it's like some, like, another version. Like, if imagine if BRD was just like a 10-man raid and it was like a mythic difficulty, you could just like go in there with your buds and get some like mythic loot out of it. I think that would be sick. That'd be like that would own, right? Like it would just have like something more to do outside of just my. Oh, speaking of which, we ended up killing Queen Ansurek last night. So that
Oh,
was
you
pretty
did?
sick.
Oh, I
Congratulations.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did. I was just
Yeah.
about to say I want to go watch because I wanted to watch Dratnos when he killed it because I know he'd be like super happy. But like, you can't see your reaction, but I bet you were just like, "Thank God it's over," or something like that. There'd be
I
no
actually had a
happiness
really
at
good
all.
time killing the boss. Like, I was fucking dialed in, locked in on the last night. No more fucking around, and
That's a good
I
feeling.
actually had a really good time. Like so far this tier, I'm gonna say that this raid tier was a W. I enjoyed it.
Wait, what? Haven't you been complaining
No,
about this for
no.
the last like 3 weeks?
Here's the difference, right? Now he's
Okay,
done
but
with it. He's killed the
yeah, now
boss.
that I'm done,
Now
yeah,
he's happy.
like you know,
Yeah.
Dude, that's
I'm
so funny.
fulfilled. You know, it was fulfilling, and I enjoyed the last part of the progression. You know, like the initial progression is awful. Like don't get me wrong, when I'm progging P1 and we're just wiping 200 times to the same bullshit, I'm fucking sick and tired of this shit. But like when we start to get to see P3 over and over and over, like we had like chain P3 pulls and
Yeah, that's fun.
that was
When
like you
your
know
whole
that
guild's locked in, it's so fun.
yeah, like that's when the fun actually starts, right? And like we're getting to see the progression, we're like trying to like squeeze out more damage and like people are playing better and you get to see new stuff. Like that's super refreshing and I definitely enjoyed killing this boss. Like I would say I enjoyed killing this boss more than Farok. Farok kind of was a
It's a
little
really
bit
good boss.
lackluster.
Ansurek is
Yeah, it was good.
is
I
sick.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is fucking brutal though. I think it's a little bit too rough.
it's kind of like I tried to make the comparison the other day on stream to like kind of like an Elden Ring or Souls boss, like a really hard Souls boss is kind of how raiding feels. Like when you're getting absolutely slaughtered by the boss, no one's like getting slaughtered by whatever hardest Souls boss they've killed, and it's like, man, this is really fun at that time. Like it's kind of fun getting better, but it's like, you know, it can put you in a dark place, right? But it's like the moment when you kill it is like, holy shit, all of that was worth it. This is the best game I've ever played, whatever. And like I feel like you have gone through that with Ansurek in the past 3 weeks, like that cycle.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Ansurek. Well, I mean, the big difference with a Souls-like game is it's kind of like a push and pull between you and the boss, right? But with
You're not
Ansurek, it
fighting a
feels
Souls
more.
boss with 20 people, I guess, is maybe
Yeah, yeah. It's like you know, there are so many pulls where I'm just kind of like you know going with the pull, and then like I'm like locked in, like blasting, popping off. We're doing great, and then it's like oh someone dies, and it's like all right wipe, and it's like man, it just feels bad, you know. Like when that happens, it just like feels bad. It just
Yeah.
feels so helpless, and you just kind of like I definitely lose so much focus when I'm raiding, and especially when I'm streaming, right? Like when I'm streaming, I'm just so fucking bored out of
Well,
my
raiding
mind.
is
I'm just
terrible stream content though. I think
it
that's worth
really
saying.
is.
It's really
Yeah.
like the worst. I usually don't even stream our raids. Like it's just
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
raid
I
content.
usually don't stream raids
I
too, unless it's
streamed I streamed Ansurek from like 50 to 0 or something, but I didn't stream basically any of the rest of Prague, and even that I was just like, okay, I should stream this, but like it's not. I don't know.
not
It is.
exciting content. Yeah.
I think it's objectively pretty bad stream content, but people like to watch people kill bosses, I guess. Which and
Yeah, watching the moment you kill
Yeah.
the boss is where you want to be. Yeah.
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 I'm glad you enjoyed it though. I'm glad you enjoyed the experience though. I think Ansurek definitely. It's like so hard that when you do have a day where you're chaining P3 pulls, that feels incredible because you just know that you're dialed in and you're getting through like 100 brutal checks to get there every pull. So yeah.
How long did it take you guys, by the way? What was like the total time?
70 something hours was like total raid tier, I believe. Hold on, let me find
The entire
hours
tier?
stats. Yeah.
That's way
Yeah.
less than us, I think. That's good.
We had 270 pulls on the last boss. Our Silken Core was really bad though.
Well, you have the same number of pulls on Silken Cord as Ansurek. That's crazy.
Oh, that's actually
Yeah,
crazy.
that
Well,
is
Ansurek got
bad.
nerfed, I think. How long on the boss were you on it with the nerf?
I think they would have been the whole
a
thing,
week.
right?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, yeah, you guys never pulled it pre-nerf, right? Or like one time.
we pulled it like one time at most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering what kill counts would be with that boss, because I saw Telegon, one of our analysts, runs a guild, and I think they on pull 99 they had like a 20% wipe or something, so they're gonna kill it I think around like 150 or something like that. But that's also like there's like a few Liquid players in there. There is I think 2 current ones that are like playing alts and stuff. So
Yeah.
like it's certainly a little different than like an
Like
entire
they
guild.
killed Silken in 70 or something, right? Which is like, I mean, it is a different type of experience than most cutting edge guilds are gonna have. Like that guild is gonna have very low pull counts because of how much firepower they're bringing to it.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah,
wonder
our
how,
prep was terrible.
Yeah, I think a lot of it maybe is on the prep side, because I actually think it is like I think there's only one current Liquid player in there, and the rest of them I think it's Ironic and Preheat are the elite are the 2 that have played here before, and then the rest of them were people who signed up because they wanted to rate at a high level. But yeah, either way, boss is impossible, and we kind of got a little off track. I wanted to hear about your Ansurek experience.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were asking. I wanted to kind of comment, bring it way back to you saying like this content they're coming out with, it's really not for me. And I'm assuming you are excluding. I think you like Plunderstorm, right? You're excluding Plunderstorm.
Oh
from
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, I'm not counting plus. I'm hyped for Plunderstorm, but that's something else.
I think it's like a direct maybe response to what they tried in BFA, because like in BFA, I feel like the patch for you was Crucible. Like the mid season patch where they come out with the really really hard raid and they tune it to be really hard because they
Well,
knew
but it
only
didn't have to
people
be
done
that
with VOD.
hard.
Yeah, sure. I mean, by the way, I'm a huge fan of they should make 10-man Mythic raids in the downtime. Like, I actually think that would be a really cool thing to do. So I agree with you there. But I think their goal for these patches are exclusively for casuals. I mean, it's
yeah,
not
100%.
news. It's not news to anyone listening to this or in this call that casuals are like by far the majority of players, so they want to cater to them the most. I think that's why I kind of want to ask how you guys handled this IO in the past, because like, yeah, I got the ring, but I also did like, I don't know, that like first time you do the room with all the chests in it was pretty fun. I like that. That was actually like
Dude,
one of the
Zscair
I
vaults
really
are
like
sick. That's like
Yeah, it was, like,
some of the
super
best
cool.
stuff like that they've made. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that was nice. And then I never interacted with anything else, but as soon as I saw that there was 3 like rotating people, like groups of people who occupy the island, that's going to mean 3 sets of achievements. If you're an achievement hunter, a collector, you don't just get 1 week of content out of that. You have 3 weeks, rotating weeks of things you have to interact with and collect and do. And I think those are probably the exact people they're targeting with that. And it's also, again, just the thing I think about the most when a patch comes out and it doesn't seem super complete like it did 2 weeks ago. Just the sheer amount of things they're making. And maybe the reason it feels bad, because not all of it, like Dorki said, is for us. Like this island is probably not targeted at us, but we're dealing with the bad tuning and the bugs and all that stuff, and that sucks. But like the sheer amount of content all these designers are making, they're probably like a year ahead of time in making and like what they're currently working on, because of how many things they have to push out in within the 1 or 2 year like expansion cycle. But yeah, I think generally it's not really for me either, you know.
Yeah, like
What do you
another
think,
thing they
Dratno?
could add too that'd be cool is if they added, like, say they added 2 dungeons in the middle of the season. I think that'd be sick, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like dungeons are a big thing that kind of we don't get we get like 1 mega dungeon per expansion. I don't know if we're getting one this time, but that's been the cadence recently. And back in Legion where they added more, that would be something they could do mid expansion that would hit you more, right, Dorky? I don't know. For me, I also like I do the other stuff as well. I did all the Forbidden Reach stuff because I mostly came back later to get it for the meta achievement for the whole expansion, the Tyvan thing. But this time around, I'm gonna do it when it comes out for the first time because I don't want to come back in a year when they make a meta achievement for War Within. I'm onto their tricks. I'm gonna get the achievements this time when it's current.
That's good.
So like I like that there's a new island. That's cool. Forbidden Reach was a cool place. I think that my biggest thing with it was that to me it was like it's a shame that these little patches have these things that are as cool as like Zaralek Cap or Zascara Vaults, and then we get like major patches and it's like much worse content. Like if you go the Zaralek Cavern stuff, I guess Sniff and Seeking was kind of cool, but like Researchers Under Fire is just such a boring event, and like there are all these that like the following the tree around in the Emerald Dream and like digging dirt. Like all of those are just bad casual content. And then they put the good casual content in these patches where you don't actually matter and you don't actually like, I mean, obviously for casual players, it matters less, but even for casual players, right? The player base, because of the reward structure as a whole, is going to do way more super blooms than they're going to do Zascara Vaults. And I just think that's a shame that they design some really cool stuff like this. And then they kind of miss which.
You think it's on purpose?
I'm not sure. I think it's mostly.
Well,
I don't think they tried to make super blooms bad. I think they just.
Yeah. That's the thing that I think is crazy. The idea that they would ever intentionally make content that's coming out on the patch bad. That's a crazy take. But trying really hard to make sure that this new thing that they've invested into, the whole like mid-patch content, making sure that owns, I think is really important, because you could kind of think of it like this. This is like a little conspiracy like, but like people are going to sub to see the new patch anyway if you're a WoW-minded person, I think. So you don't really need to try that hard to get them subbed for the patch, although you need to make a good game to have people sub to it. But like the stuff in the middle, the trading post, this new stuff, the Plunderstorm, the Mop remix, that stuff has to be super high quality, because you have to teach people that you have been telling to only resub and log in for patches for the last 10 years that like actually there's going to be meaningful content for your sub every month, right? So like I feel like the emphasis on making sure that stuff is better actually makes good business sense.
Yeah, especially because people like us are just still playing dungeons or reclearing or whatever, like, and we're still going to be subbed regardless, right? So like, they don't have to make anything for us, right? And then, but for the casual players, now they're out of stuff. So cool content when there's not new seasonal stuff, and then when there's new seasonal stuff, you don't have to actually make cool casual content. I don't actually think that's that much of a conspiracy at all. Yeah, that totally makes some sense. For me, on the ring, I am really excited for the ring to see if they can now, in a world of warbands. So, okay, I had a lot of problems with the Onyx Amulet. One was that it was annoying for alts, and I feel like warbands can fix that in a huge way. Like, I feel like if they warbound this thing properly, it can be a fun way to do a little bit on your alt and then have a nice, cool piece of item for your new alt as you're gearing it up, or your old alts even as well. The other problems I had with the Onyx Amulet were just that it wasn't cool and it wasn't tuned well. And already Cersei's Circlet is cooler because it's got a ring transmog. They've never done that before. That's inherently cool. They can make it more cool and fun by just finding a way for the gems and stuff that you slot into it to either not be actively annoying like the Onyx Amulet ones were, or actually be actively cool, which, I don't know, like if you in some way felt them in your gameplay or something like that, that could be really cool. They could do something awesome there. Or they could just make it not as actively annoying and badly tuned as the Onyx Amulet, and we'd probably still be on a W overall. Which, yeah, I'm curious to see how much they want it to still be BIS into next tier as well, because that is, I think, an open question. There's a couple of different quotations that are going around.
So was it BIS going into Season 2? They nerfed the hell out of it, right?
Amulet got nerfed. Yeah, it was actually still good for me on a Brewmaster Monk, but it was not particularly good for anybody else.
Oh, I remember that. I remember Relo complaining about that.
Yeah, it was very obnoxious, but I was one of like 4 specs that it was still good for, yeah.
I mean, same with the rare rings from Season 1.
Yes, I was wearing a heroic Aeronog ring for all the progression. That was
And
dude.
someone, and I think Dratnos will know this because it sounds like he is very passionate about the Onyx Amulet. But like, do you remember their tuning goals they stated that were like super wrong and exactly what they said and how they drew it back?
I remember them saying that they didn't want it to be good into the next tier, and then it was clearly tuned so that you were going to wear it forever, or not.
You were going to
not
wear
like,
it. For
Yeah.
healers, you would have literally worn it forever until it was changed, like multiple expansions
Yeah.
or something.
But I don't have the quote in front of me. Yeah.
Yeah, the quote was, if I remember, it doesn't really matter for the sake of conversation here, but the quote was definitely bad. It was like, here is our intended goal for this, and this is how we're going to plan on doing this, and if we have to make any changes, we will. And it was like completely like, it was busted. But I'm unfortunate I don't have that. Dorky, I wanted to kind of ask you something about, like, I wanted to see a patch for me, and you actually got me thinking. You said, I wish they would have made like a mythic version of BRD.
BRD.
You said that. And then I was thinking about it real quick, and I'm like, obviously same. That'd be sweet for me, right? But I wonder if the community would like that at all. Because I already saw a little bit of resistance to the fact that heroic BRD has been mostly unnerfed and is actually like kind of challenging. It's not like maybe like early mythic boss challenging for the last two, I think, as compared to like maybe like it's a little harder in heroic Ansurek, I think. And the gear is not nearly as good. And that made me think that the gear was maybe not the point. I think there should probably always be a good relationship between the difficulty of the content and the rewards you're getting from it. But like the reason when they didn't nerf heroic, it made it obvious to me that they still wanted it. It doesn't matter. It didn't need to die right away because you don't need to do heroic BRD for anything. You don't really need the loot, right? But you want to, like, when you finally kill that boss, it'll just feel great. Like there's an aspirational challenge in the game basically. And then when you mentioned mythic, that means it would be dropping mythic loot, which is very, very good gear. People are like really struggling. A lot of people right now are really struggling to get like pieces of gear to even spend gilded crests on, right? Or mythic track gear, yeah. And I feel like if there was a mythic version of this and it was hard and aspirational, whatever, obviously they would give them the ability to make heroic more achievable. But I don't think people are struggling with heroic track gear or heroic or anything runed crest related at the moment. And I think people would see that as a negative thing. They would, like, right now heroic BRD is cool that it's hard and you can do it because you can like feel great when you kill it because you don't have to kill it. But if it was mythic and it dropped mythic gear, the feeling could arise of, I have to kill this now. This has to be part of our raid week. This is like a progression thing. And I feel like they didn't want that. I don't know. What do you guys think about like them potentially doing something like that?
Well, so I think it's 100% correlated with your gear and what it drops and like the rewards to the difficulty. Because for heroic, there were, as far as I know, I haven't really pugged or anything, but I've seen a lot of people talking about how it's impossible to pug because nobody cares enough to do it because the loot sucks. But at the same time, it's very challenging. So if the gear was actually incentivized and players were like actively trying to do this raid, I think it would be a completely different story. And I think it just has to
like
be
a better story. Like
right.
like if the heroic gear was sick and you needed it, but it was difficult, you think people would enjoy that rather than feel upset that they didn't get to do the new patch thing for free. Okay.
But I also think like it achieves two goals. One is like you can get an idea of what 10-man hard rating would look like if that was exactly what BRD was.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's pretty close to what it is, right?
It's pretty. I mean, it's 10 to 15, right?
Yeah,
it's like 10 to 15, but that's like clearly the goal is lower grade.
I think the tuning should also just be easier than Nerf bar. Like I think heroic should probably be like slightly easier than heroic Nerf bar, and mythic difficulty should just be like in between heroic and mythic. So
well,
it's
that's funny.
To, like, bridge
what
the
does
gap.
that mean? It's like when you say in between heroic and mythic, I'm thinking of like somewhere in between mythic Olgrax. Because like within mythic, there's like three difficulties, three clear. There's the first four are difficulty, the next two are difficulty, and the next two are a completely different difficulty, right? So like,
I mean, I guess at hardest, it should just be like at hardest Kaiveza.
That's pretty hard. Okay.
So
at hardest, cool.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Here's my take on this. I had a lot of fun. We went in, we did heroic BRD the first day it came out, just like a bunch of guildies that wanted to. and it was super fun. We had such a good time. Like, it was super sick. We, the content was like, it was harder than Nerebar Palace Heroic, and we had to kind of figure out what the bosses did. There were a lot that we like didn't wipe to, but we were like, had to figure out in the middle of fighting it what you were doing on it. And then there were a couple we did wipe to, and we were kind of yelling at Discord and stuff, having a really good time. That being said, I suspect that experience is something that very few total guilds in the world have had with Heroic BRD, because most of the ones that could do that are probably progging Mythic, and there's like 20 or 30 guilds in the world when it came out that were done with Mythic, and so none of them are going to use a raid night to go do BRD when it comes out. And then for like everybody else, you're just looking at a raid that's harder and less rewarding than the current one that's out. So I don't know. I don't think they should have necessarily made a Mythic version though, because again, I think that also like, who's going to go do that, right?
But that's exactly because of the rewards, right? Because like
it reminds me exactly of like it would basically be Crucible, right? Like you're basically saying like, oh, release another Crucible of Storms, right? But
just
like,
for a lot
Crucible
of guilds,
is way too hard. That's not
but
Crucible.
like,
I mean, Crucible's way harder than BOD. So,
but Crucible gave 10 item levels better gear than BRD as well. Like, or BRD.
Interesting though, but a lot of that gear sucked, which is maybe a separate conversation. Like you didn't even want it, but
some of it was sick. But yeah.
There was like a good trinket.
There was Voidstone. You got to keep that off your healers. They can't be trusted with it. You remember that the Voidstone where it put an absorb that absorbed damage or healing, and you would put it on your person, and then they would lay on hands themselves, and it would just remove the healing absorb, and then they would die to the auto because they were still low. That was funny. That happened once in a key I was in. A lot of yelling. That's a common theme with my stories.
The way I see it is, it would be cool for something for players who are 30 item level to be able to progress on. That's not Mythic Raid. Because like Heroic Raid becomes super trivialized once you reach the 620, 630 item level, right?
Yeah.
But if there was something to like kind of bridge that gap, and I think like the problem with Crucible was like insanely hard. Like it was harder than BOD, which is insane. I think it just has to be easier than Nerebar, and it has to be something that's like actually puggable. Because I think pug raiding is something a lot of people would be very interested in doing. And obviously you can't pug Mythic outside of the first 4 bosses. So having another raid that's like similar to pugging the first 4 bosses is super achievable, and there are plenty of people who are doing that.
Yeah, but I don't know, if you put myth track gear on it, like you have to go do that. That now your guilds that are progressing Mythic Nerebar Palace are now supposed to go and do Mythic VRD as like every week now because it's gear.
I thought that like, okay, when I first started saying this, you guys were like, yeah, they should just like do the Mythic thing. I realized that I think I'm like endlessly scarred from how much of a slam dunk I thought Plunderstorm would have been, and how much I still feel personally myself how great it was, and then how so many people were so mad that it had rewards that were good that people wanted, which means they had to do it, and because they had to do it, it wasn't an option, and they had to participate in this thing they hated. And I'm thinking like, oh, maybe that would be this version of a 10-man Mythic. Like I have to have this thing, but like maybe the difference there is Plunderstorm involved PvP, and I think a lot of WoW players just hate PvPing in any way. But
I think what they should have done with BRD is Heroic should have just been like 30% easier, and it should have just been like a good source of ruined crests and hero track gear that was easier than other sources rather than being harder than other sources. Obviously that would have made it, my particular experience with it would have been less fun. Like my experience was more fun because it was tuned to actually be quite hard when it first came out. But I think that the overwhelming sentiment that I've seen on this thing is like, this is stupid. This is like really hard with really unrewarding, and what's the point of this? And I think that a lot of people would have had fun with those fights if they were not quite so brutally tuned.
What if they had Mythic, but it was like literally 20%, maybe 10% harder than it is right now, which is already borderline first 4 Mythic bosses, but just everything dropped Gilded Crest, and it was like the most OP Gilded Crest farm of all time.
It was just Gilded Crests, but not Gilded Crests and like Hero 4 out of 6 or something, Hero 6 out of 6, somewhere in that range, but it didn't actually drop Myth Track.
Yeah, like the value would be you get
just a good Gilded farm.
Valor Stones and Gilded. Oh, I have a spit on Valor Stones.
Oh, dude, I hate Valor Stones. I hate them so much. Pissed off about Valor Stones.
I'm so let's just do this now. I just for a long time I tried to convince myself that like as a developer you like a resource like this. You convince yourself that it's good because you find a way to reward yourself for doing everything, world quests and PvP and raid and dungeons and everything, and you find a way to just like give yourself a reward. Okay, that's cool, but like anytime you have to do something specifically to obtain Valor Stones, and you didn't get quite enough of it from doing the mode you're playing, and you have to specifically do an activity to gain it, that is the worst feeling ever. It super sucks. And then you have to ask yourself the question, oh, well, maybe you still want to keep this resource as a developer, as a designer. You're like, okay, well, the resource still matters. We just need to increase the amount you get. But if really the reality is anytime you have to actually go farm it on your own, but it's just a resource you're gaining for playing the game, why does it exist in the first place? If anytime it becomes relevant that it exists, it sucks. It just sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I'm on your train now. I'm very against Valor Stones.
It's so stupid, man. I'm playing my warrior. My warrior has 2,000 Valor Stones and has been capped on Valor Stones for a while because I just haven't had anything good to upgrade it with, right? And then I get a couple upgrades, and now I'm out of Valor Stones. And then I take a two-handed weapon out of the vault, and it's like, oh, poggers, a 623 myth track weapon. Oh wow, I already have 636 sword and shield. I can upgrade this thing. I've got my crest discount. Oh, I need 1,400 Valor Stones to upgrade this thing all the way up, and I'm at 0, even though I was capped yesterday. I had 2,000 yesterday. I have 0 today. I need 1,400. What's the best way to get 1,400 Valor Stones? Well, that's a great question. You can go do this world quest to get 26 Valor Stones. That was the point when I broke my monitor and I needed to go buy a new monitor. I didn't break my monitor, but I should. I was thinking about it. If I was a more violent person, which I'm not, but if I was, that would have been the moment I would have broken my monitor, hypothetically speaking. That's so stupid.
Yeah, I agree with all that. It sucks.
Yeah.
Fuck Valor Stone.
Hey, man, dude, delete Valor Stones, remove crest depletion penalty. Those two changes make the game so much better instantly. I swear, instantly.
Also, and this doesn't affect a ton of people, but I just see no reason why it shouldn't exist. Let's say you get 12 Gilded crests on an 8. Cool. All right, on like a 12 or on a 13 or a 14, you should just get incrementally more. If you're timing these keys, why the fuck would you not get more of that resource? It literally takes more time, and you're risking depletion, which gives you negative Gilded crests, right? So
yeah, it's like if you go into the pit in D4 and pit 65 and higher all give the same rewards. It's like, what?
That makes no sense.
I just be spamming 65s then,
I'll just
right?
do 60. That's that is a perfect example, Dratnos. That is exactly
That's my job,
right.
example maker.
All right, Dorki, make an example as good as he just did.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I don't know. I mean, he's Dratnos.
Dude, I'll bail you out.
The best.
I'll
bail you out. There's been WOWHEAD posts. There's 10 points.
Wait, since we started talking?
There has been. Yeah, they've data mined 12 of the gems for the exciting ring, and there are racial changes. Yeah, which of these you guys want to tackle first?
Oh, let's look at the racial changes first. I think racials are really interesting.
It's so dog shit. Yeah, we could talk about that real quick.
Developers note,
they are so clueless.
We're making updates to several racial abilities with the goal of increasing the viability of some underrepresented races. Many of these abilities have fallen behind naturally within the game's ecosystem, and our hope is that targeted tweaks will help promote increased diversity of racials across all content types. Draenei, Gift of the Naru cooldown reduced to 2 minutes was 3 minutes.
Wait, where is this post? I want to see it at the same time you are.
Here, let me look at it.
Warworth and hotfixes, or you can just post it. But I like how Dratnos is doing his YouTube voice just to us right now.
You usually have to pay for this.
Okay, so Gift of the Naru reduced to 3. I think that one's actually pretty good. It's just long cooldown.
Yeah, and healing.
High Mountain Tauren, what is Rugged Tenacity? That's just the
DR.
Yeah. It's a flat damage reduction against all incoming hits, so it's pretty good against many small hits, but it's a pretty small number, which plus 50%
it's like,
is still pretty small.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Light Forged, they increased the radius of Light's judgment to 10 yards was 5. Wow. And they buffed its damage. Blinding. But they target capped it. Oh god, it's been AoE capped. Yeah.
Worgen, Volpera, Bag of Tricks, healing and damage increased by 40. That's good.
How come they're not buffing Rocket Barrage for goblins? Where's that buff, man?
Oh, that button is so good.
It's so
funny.
Wait,
no, you're talking about the damage one. I actually forgot that one existed.
I am talking about the damage one that shares a cooldown with Rocket Jump, yeah. They buffed Void Elf, movement speed of the Rift duration and maximum range. That's kind of poggers. Void Elf was actually good.
Wait, maximum range increased to 35 yards. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, Void Elf has been used in the race.
Not.
It has been used in the MDI to get past certain things. It is already, it possesses one of the unique things
Yeah.
that would make you play it. I mean, but this doesn't really solve the problem with racial.
Yeah.
So the reason that Dorky was about to pop off is like, if you are a like purely gameplay focused person, which I think all of us certainly are. I think Dratnos skews into some other areas as well. I would say I definitely am that. I think Dorky definitely is that. It almost seems like racials should just be selected in your talent tree, like at the bottom of your talent thing where the PvP talents are, and you just like select the racial you want to use for that. And I think Blizzard is so resistant to that because like this game's been out for 20 years, and if you make a Night Elf character, you want to log in, and that means you have Shadow Meld for a lot of people, and them not having it and it being a pick thing would just like super ruin the immersion, I think, for a lot of people. And I think Blizzard has been trapped by that, and racials are like so ridiculously out of balance. I think like damage wise it's not that bad. Like I think some people went like Mechanome this tier because it was technically a little better, but like I think the damage differences between races are extremely small impact. You could even in the race, like if you just had everyone in our guild play the worst damage race for their character, we would have still killed the boss on that pull, and probably wouldn't have not killed any bosses.
How are you gnoming out of your roots, idiot?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, well that brings me to my next point. The thing that makes racial so broken is like not the like stat things they give you for your damage, it's the ability to do things like Shadow Meld and Stone Form, and honestly in the right scenario Void Elf, or what it allowed you to do on Mythic Ansurek with Gnome. Those are like in the right scenario super not balanced. Even like I think, what's your biggest gripe, Dorky? It's got to be Shadow Meld, right, with Night Elf, because
it's got to be Stone Form. Surely.
Well, I'm gonna say Stone Form personally because I am so sick and fucking tired of being a dwarf, man.
Amen.
Like I have 4 of my characters on my screen are a dwarf right now, and I'm just so tired of it, man. Like just let me play.
He's playing WoW again. Look
Dude.
at that.
No, he means on his warband screen, sitting around his
He's
campfire.
just sitting there
surely.
staring at his warband.
No, I'm not. But I'm saying like whenever I'm logged in,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a dwarf anymore, man. Please just get me out of dwarf. But
Dude, I can't. Unironically, they have
OP.
such a stupid sitting around that fire animation as well. I hate them so much. But all my characters are dwarfs as well, right? Because like it's just default. Their tanks are just default dwarf. And
Did they make Shadow Meld work less in dungeons this season?
No, Shadow Meld is still. Well, I mean, I guess you can say yes because like before it was like giga broken, right? Like you straight up skipped boss mechanics. So
yeah, there's not as OP stuff to meld on boss fights as there was.
I've never understood why they even allow Shadow Meld to function in dungeons. They make it broken in raid for the exact reason as you would want to make it not work in dungeons. The same one. It makes mechanics not happen.
And it gets fixed, right?
What do you mean it's fixed?
What I'm saying, like it gets nerfed, right? Like to the point where like you can't Shadow Meld certain things.
Basically just bosses don't respect it in raid combat. Like
No, in raid, Shadow Meld does literally nothing.
Yeah,
it does not work.
Yeah, it's you can still meld like aggro, right? If you have aggro in raid.
Yeah, but like imagine if you get like rest.
But yeah, if you're getting rested,
you just meld and it gets off.
And even targeted spells from bosses, right, are still gonna hit you usually.
Yeah. So if you're Blizzard and people like us want to just pick it, we want to pick between Gnome Racial and Shadow Meld and Stone Form and play whatever race we want for gameplay purposes. And then you have a bunch of people that these are actually kind of theoretical. I actually don't know that these people exist. I assume they exist. Are people that would be really upset actually if you took away their like racial flavor from what their class can do. You think those people? I think those people probably exist, right?
Yeah, there's probably some people who yell like Fort of Horde, and they care a lot about their faction ties.
I think there'd be. This is maybe wrong. I actually feel like there would be a lot more people that would care about the racial thing than the faction divide, personally. But I could be wrong about that. But okay, let's say you're stuck between those two things. Like, what do you do? I mean, I guess they're just buffing all of the really, really stinky races. But the thing is they're focusing on kind of the throughput element of a lot of them. And that's not really the issue with racials at all.
Yeah, I just don't get it.
Even though you could always make them, like in a perfect world, I think the race you're playing does not mean you're losing damage or losing really cool utility. So at least fixing the damage part is a good thing, I think. But and I just don't know if they can ever really fix it. Actually, I don't know. Let's just say full Scorched Earth. Blizzard puts escape artist and shadow meld and stoneform and all that shit on your talent thing tomorrow, and that's no longer racial specific. And they can find other ways to make racials cool. Is the game burning down? Is WoWHEAD on fire? Like what's the?
No, definitely.
I mean, I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating,
Yeah, I think
and I'm
that's
buying
celebration.
a 10-pack of race changes immediately and making all my guys look sick.
Yo,
Oh, that's such a good
they'll
point.
earn
I
a ton of
actually,
money.
I've heard people
Yeah.
in my stream, we brought this up before, they said, oh, they won't ever do that because of the amount of money they make from people race changing for specific things. And I'm like, dude, I think you have that so wrong. Like, I think if they ever change this, the amount of race changes that people would buy would break records. Like,
Yeah, I
everyone
mean,
would do
the
it.
only people that are currently buying race changes and that would buy race changes in the future based on this are people that let like racial performance affect their choice, which is I still think a pretty small set of the WoW player base in general, right? Like I think most of the player base doesn't do that very much at all. I think that's pretty isolated
Dude.
to a high end set of the player base. But man, for me, it's tough because like I have characters that I've rolled up back in TBC or whatever, back in Wrath as certain races, and like it hurts me to turn them into stupid dwarves, and now they're sitting
Ooh,
around my
so
campfire in dwarves. The
so
old
fucking true.
transmog they used to have doesn't fit anymore because they're dwarves, and I'm so sad about it, man. Like it's one of those spots. It reminds me of Covenants where like I care about flavor and I care about performance. And so if performance is on the table, then I have to sacrifice caring about flavor, and it just makes me feel less attached to the flavor of the game and the characters.
Yeah, this is just
And,
like
I think
something-
the vast majority of WoW players are like you.
I think that
Right.
a lot of people just don't care as much at all about the performance, and they'll just play
Yeah.
whatever, and that's
I mean,
totally
it's definitely
cool.
been growing. Like I've definitely
Yeah.
seen a lot more racial complaints the past, I want to say, since Dragonflight to now, than like any of the previous expansions.
There was like a historically Stoneform M+ season where Stoneform's tendrils reached into lower and lower keys than it
Oh,
usually
actually, no.
does.
I guess this makes sense because of cross faction, right? I mean,
True.
It's kind of like a duh.
That was also
Actually, it makes more
that
sense.
always used to be like well, we can't make people faction change, or like, well, we're in a horde guild. So I remember though, even in Shadowlands, there would be people in my guild that would be like, yep, we're going on an alliance vacation for push weeks. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks after we get rank 1. Yeah, that's stupid. I don't know. I'm glad they're buffing underperformers. I think that's certainly good, but I don't think it is going to do much. Except,
I mean, if anything,
maybe
they
this
should
Void
just
Elf
make them
change
OP.
makes it so there'll be a Void Elf OP situation. I would just love to see them take all the power out of races. I think the thing is, you could still have cool stuff for the races. Like, Night Elf is Shadow Meld, sure, but Shadow Meld could just work in the outdoor world and not in dungeons and stuff. Like, we already make it not work in raids. It wouldn't be that much crazier to make it not work in dungeons as well. And then you could like buff Wisp. You die and you're a Night Elf and you turn into a Wisp. What if we just made that a super fast dragon riding spirit while you're dead, and nobody else can do that, and now Night Elves can do that if they're dead. They've got double speed dragon riding Wisp while they're dead. Poggers, right? Like that's a cool racial effect. Volpera, you
Yeah.
can set a campfire and you have an extra Hearthstone somewhere. Like just make one of those for each races. Obviously, like just make something incredibly creative and cool for every race. I'm a genius game designer, but like you spend the time to do that. I think is worth it, and then we can take it out of the rest of the stupid stuff. Stoneform, I hate it. The alternative here is if you want to see more diversity, is to just target the two that are always the culprits, which are Stoneform and Shadow Meld. And then like if some tiers it's like Escape Artist or something, and that happens for like 50 guilds in the world where they switch a bunch of characters to gnomes, that's much less bad than every top M pluser for the past 6 years feeling all this pressure to be a dwarf or a night elf, and then discriminating against the people that don't switch to dwarfs and night elf because they have a character that they think is a high mountain tauren. And that it sucks that players like that are cross pressured do end up having to kind of make that choice between the flavor and the power.
Yeah. I also wonder
Or
how
we
much
just
it would
make
affect
them OP.
PvP players. Because like when you said like, oh, you just make Shadow Meld, you make Escape Artist, maybe you make whatever, you make Stoneform not work in raids and dungeons, right? Most of the people, or maybe all of the people who would really care that their class fantasy racial is gone, don't participate in a lot of those things and probably wouldn't hate that they don't have them there, especially because they barely apply ever anyway, right? There's been like maybe 2 Stoneform bosses in the past like 3 years or something like that. Like it doesn't happen all the time. So yeah, I think you're onto something for sure. What was the other thing? So we have racials.
The gems, the gemmies. We've data mined 12 of the gemmies. I'll link it to you
Yeah, I need to see that.
in the channel. They look pretty similar to Onyx Amulet gems, except there's one that just gives you secondary. There's one that gives you every secondary. There's one that gives you mastery, and there's one that gives you your highest secondary, which I think is probably really good. Because the problem with the Onyx Amulet was that it sucked for people that liked stats, and it was good for people that liked procs. But with this, now they have a tuning knob that can make it so that it's just good for everybody, equally good for everybody. Because I remember it was like this thing wasn't even a DPS increase for warlocks to put on an amulet.
Yeah, I remember that because their stats were so broken.
Yeah, because stats were so valuable.
It's a problem in its own, by the way.
Yeah, but there's always going to be some of that, and I think they were very stubborn about not adding in a stat option for the amulet, and it looks like they're starting with one for the circlet. So that's cool. The other effects all are just kind of looking very similar to the primordial stones, but that's not inherently bad. I think none of these look like they're going to super affect your gameplay or anything, but even if they just like have a cool animation that plays, I think that would also go a long way to making this a lot cooler than the Onyx Amulet. So the things that are different than the Amulet are definitely still really good. It may still end up being a bit of a whatever item, but honestly, like a ring with a transmog. Yeah, I'm a lot higher on this than I was on the Amulet. Yeah, I hated the Amulet, as said.
Do you think this will lead to Blizzard putting a transmog option for rings on your...
Probably
do
not.
new rings now that they have the tech to make rings have a transmog, do they add that to the game?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be like this was a special case, because I don't think there's much they can do with ring transmogs. Like, there's just not much. What are you going to do? Like a gold one, a silver one, and then like a couple different colors? And we have like
still a little bit of flavor.
We have like 20 rings that come out every patch, and you want them to come up with 20 unique.
What about
colors?
What about? And I would put this on my character. What about a ring pop collab?
Oh hell yeah!
That would go fucking crazy.
Dude,
I'd
they've
put
been
ring
doing
pop
so
on
many
all my
collabs.
guys.
I mean, honestly, like I go to the grocery store and like, oh, Doritos, Mountain Dew, Trolley, all these different things. They've all collabed with Blizzard now. Like, I don't know. They're running out of places. Do ring pop is a perfect one.
A Doritos chip ring. the ring pop would go stupid though.
Dude, and there's what are they,
like
bugles?
a binky.
You
They could
remember
make
the
a fucking
bugles?
binky.
Because they could put it on the end of your finger as well, like the horn shaped chip things, the bugles, and you'd put them on the end of your fingers.
What are you talking about? A bugle?
No, bugle.
Like a horn?
Bugle chip. Yeah, they're bugles. Look up bugles chips. And what you do is you could,
those things.
Yeah, you put those on your fingers and then you eat them off your fingers. You put one on each of your fingies. They could make a translog that does that.
Fronk will put a very high definition edit of an animated version of Dratnos eating a bugle.
Yeah.
Now. No, well.
No, I'm giving him some.
He can create your
material to work with. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
I love Fronk, and I endeavor to make his professional life as easy as possible.
Dude, I haven't had a Mountain Dew in a long time.
You should get one now. They have a crazy.
I don't want one.
Oh, I actually looked this up on stream because of that. So, and not even NA. It's actually not even available in Canada. Only America has access to a mount. I think for the first time ever. So, Chinese region, totally different. They're policed and ran by a totally different company. But as far as like NA and EU, OCE, WOW, all those people, like for the first time ever, there's only one region that gets a mount. And I'm surprised more people aren't like really mad about that. I feel like mount collectors that would drive them insane, right?
Yeah, for the record, that is stupid. Anytime they do a cool promo with a company, that's cool. But like, if you have to region lock it, don't have a mount. Like, I think the pets were annoying enough when they're region locked, but mounts, that is icky.
Yeah,
you drink a lot of Mountain Dew?
No, I'm on a. Actually, wait, I'm not going to reveal the soda that I'm currently on because I'm not getting paid by any currently. But if any soda companies are out there and would like me to claim to be drinking yours,
we have very loyal listeners. There would be almost 100,000 people that would all buy the exact soda he is. Are you covering it? What is that?
That's a lot.
No,
of
it's
money.
hidden.
That's a Coke Zero, isn't it?
Nope.
What is it? I want to. Okay,
I can't tell.
I know you can't
Pepsi.
say it now.
All right, Frank will blur it out. You guys can see though. Look.
Yeah, I knew it.
Oh, look at
it.
that.
Yeah. These things
He's gonna have to blur that out crazy.
He's
for
gonna
it
have to do some
not
crazy
be, like,
blurring,
Very
yeah.
obviously the soda it is. Okay, that's good. What else? So we have those two. We have some other stuff to talk about, but
You know what else would be cool to add in a 0.5 patch or like mid patch?
What?
Making delves relevant again. Is that possible?
I think that's just going to take This is where I came to a month ago. I was thinking about bringing up Dells on the podcast, and then I was just like, you know what? Most everything they've made in the past 10 years has taken about 2 years after being introduced, or maybe a year and a half to be good. And I'm just giving Dells. I'm giving them a year and a half. I'm just trying not to overthink it. Like, it'll probably just be good content in a year and a half, just like every other piece of good content they've made for a really long time.
Yeah, just let it happen. Oh, by the
Delves
way,
are
so
the best Valorstone farm if you're capped on Valorstones, because the radiant echoes you get from finishing a delve, if you use those to do the Azurite memory things out in the world or whatever, that's the best way you can do Valorstones per hour. If you end up,
yeah, I do remember that giving a lot.
yeah. Sorry,
Is
I cut
this
you off.
you guys know about the whole raids being buggy as hell, like abilities desyncing? Was
Or
that a
maybe we
thing
could
during
just-
Raise the World first?
No, it came out with 11.0.5.
Yeah, it's a feature of
Oh,
the
it's a new
most
feature.
recent
Oh,
update.
okay.
And it was actually they
I see.
changed some underlying stuff about. So it was basically like, oh yeah, we changed some like architecture of the game, and a side effect was this desync, and now they've tried to fix it. Although apparently now there's some reverse desync happening where abilities are going early rather than late relative to their animation, but. It's
Wait, I'm
annoying
actually
since-
not
yeah.
familiar. Oh, well, I know of one. I know of the Silken Court thing.
Yeah,
We've
so
had
the
that
Silken
happen
Court
to
one
us.
was the most prolific one, but there were a lot that were like basically RNG proc things you could get, like web blades could proc a desync, and it's like 1 out of every 200 web blades that spawned would just fire a second later than it looked like it was gonna.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which obviously is tremendously bad, but they all happen pretty infrequently.
What
there were
about
a
the
couple
desync
others.
on the pole? Are you guys having that
Yeah.
happen to you?
That was also, I think,
Yeah.
related to this.
That happens to me all the time, and Sang
I hate
in our
it.
guild. The
It's
first
happened
time
to
you
me a
pull
couple
Mythic
times.
boss, if you one shot it, I will be DC'd on the pull, and so will Sang. It's crazy, and it never happens on any pull after the first pull.
There was a Kaiveza, same person getting targeted by 2 shades charges bug.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Yeah,
That's
there's a
cool.
clip of that, which is very funny. I think that's also they're all pretty rare as a thing. It's not like there's like the most common one is the Silken Court spikes being delayed some of the time, but the other ones are all pretty difficult to reproduce. It seems like.
Yeah, the one where we killed the boss for free was pretty rare too. Because I'm mad
Yeah,
about that one.
dude, that happened to they fixed that, and that came back with this patch as well. That happened to me in a heroic run last week.
What
Wait,
the hell? Did you
boss?
guys kill it?
Oh,
Yeah.
No, we. So I think you can still do it right now, because our guild we did we do like a bunch of 4 out of 8 mythics, and then we go do the last 2 bosses on heroic in the same group just for gilded crests. And I wasn't there with them, but I did a run the other day, and they were all like, "Oh, let's try to bug it," and it sounded like they had gotten it to bug like a bunch of times in a row, and that was yesterday. So I think it still exists for sure.
Oh, yeah, it happened to me accidentally in like a half pug heroic last 2. Of course, accidentally. And as soon as it came
Yeah,
out, we
accidentally, though.
we all were all going like, huh?
And of course you
Okay.
immediately wiped because
Yeah.
that
Well,
would
somebody
be-
was like, should we kill it? Should we kill the boss? And then somebody else said, we deserve it. And then we killed it.
that's
So
good.
you guys killed it.
We did. Yeah,
I'm
we're
reporting you guys.
Dude, Dorky's so mad. Dude, Dorky, his guild did get absolutely toasted for that as well, and they actually didn't do anything wrong.
yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
after we killed Ansurek, someone just like DMs our tank. A good job killing the boss, exploiters.
Yeah, it's turned into anytime there's like a bug, my whole guild now starts spamming. Huh? What?
That's crazy. What
Yeah.
do we do?
No, I mean it's just funny. It's like I agree. You did nothing wrong. Like I would have killed the boss too, given that
do
happening.
nothing.
Yeah. It's all
And
fair
then
game.
I think we talked about it a little bit during the bonus episode last week, but also the mount, right? I think just the mount and
Oh,
the
yeah.
patch are interesting. Like the patch, I'm trying to think historically. I think it's like the most buggy the game has been. I do remember there were some patches that weren't major patches, and you couldn't actually raid for like a day or 2.
Oh my god. Trilliax. You remember when Trilliax's beam was desynced in Nighthold?
I don't remember that now.
There was a patch that desynced Trilliax's beam, and then also Elisand in Nighthold. But you could
Like-
beat it if you had enough damage.
All I know is there was this time in our guild where we always raided on Patch Tuesday, and then there was like 4 or 5 bad ones in a row, or
Yeah.
maybe like 4 or 5 out of 6, and we were like, we're never raiding on Patch Day ever again. So like we raided on Wednesday, this week, like a day after the patch, and it was fine. Like we one-shot Silken Court and Ansurek, and Silken Court bugged. We had 4 people get hit on Silken Court, but we just like kind of AoE'd them out, and it worked, and just figured it out. It's like it was broken, but it was fine. I actually wonder if this was... It's definitely the most buggy patch in a while, I think, and especially the like classes reverting to their... That's a weird one. The classes reverting to an old version of their class where bugs that had been fixed are now prevalent again. That's weird.
Apparently, that was also just an issue with like merging hotfix branches that they have corrected long term there. So that's good to see too.
It sounds like a rookie mistake.
Yeah, somebody let the intern into the code again. I don't know.
And then of course, and it was not planned that they were going to release the $90 amount, but in response, knowing that people were upset with the patch, obviously they then chose to, on one day's notice, release the Brutosaur amount, and that was kind of a crazy. Yeah. Which, well, I don't know. A lot of people complained about that mount, and I think almost all of them bought it.
Yeah,
and
I'm one of them.
Yeah. So I don't really know.
That's what makes it annoying.
Yeah, it's tough as well because like there's part of me that's like that wants to protest it with my wallet, but then there's another part of me that wants to have a mailbox in an auction house and not just.
I wish I knew
out on that.
I wish I knew Blizzard and WoW's financials.
Yeah,
me sounds too. Like a stupid thing to say, but like here's one thing I heard recently is actually like I don't know if you guys ever get caught up in like a really long string of those insider or like
oh yeah,
the like YouTube videos where you can kind of just learn about love learning. You can just like learn about other industries and stuff. And randomly a video game one came up and I'm like, oh, I do that. That's interesting. I wonder what this video game guy has to say. And from what I could tell from the YouTube comments, he was like really, really well respected. It was like the guy who made Dead Space, I think. And he's like I don't know. The YouTube comments were big fans of this guy. And YouTube comments about gaming are very brutal. So like I assume this guy, pretty high approval rating, a game director. And one thing he mentioned that I didn't really think about before is someone asked the question and then they like answer the tweets basically. Someone tweeted at him and was like, why are games $60? Like who decided at one point that games are just going to be $60 and they'll always be $60? And he was like, I don't know, probably like salespeople or publishers or something. But I will tell you that games have been $60 for like almost 20 years or very close to it, and games are still $60 or maybe $70 at their base thing, but they're like 4 to 5 times more expensive to make. And I don't want to push that cost onto the fan, but I also don't like, it's kind of, the industry doesn't really know what to do with this. And that made me realize like, oh, well, that clears up a lot of things for me in a lot of different games where there's been all kinds of like sneaky monetization and microtransactions and any kind of like, because they're trying not to push it onto the fan that you have to pay it ideally. I guess I'm not talking about Blizzard, by the way, it could be any company, but like they're trying to push it onto the optional fan, I guess, the one that is willing to pay for things extra. And then and that made me think of all of WoW's like WoW's probably making an absolute boatload of money from subs, and they do all this other shit, and they're making all this money, I assume. But like, I would just want to know if they're like extremely profitable and are laying off QA people and just like rolling around like pigs in their piles of money, or are they making reasonable decisions to make a decent amount of profit on something they have to make profit on, or it wouldn't exist? And I just don't know which one it is, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. It reminds me, I was reading about price discrimination, which is, the basic idea is like you get people to pay more if they can pay more for stuff, right? And it's a concept that either has very unfavorable or actually somewhat favorable responses from people, depending on the form it takes. Like if you ask people, hey, do you support a senior citizen's discount for the bus? They'll be like, yeah, but that's price discrimination as well, right? Like that is also offering a cheaper version of the product for people who can pay less, or a group that you want, right? And then, but if you instead are like, hey, do you think it's cool to have an algorithm identify exactly how much you're willing to pay for plane tickets and then try and charge you that much when it's twice as much as your friend who, has less money or whatever? People are like, ooh, no, that's icky. That's bad. So it's interesting. Games are in a similar spot as well, where it's like, I mean, I'm sure WoW is not one of those games that has like whales, right? You can't whale out in WoW and just buy. Like the most you could do is you can buy all the cosmetics out of the store.
Probably
right?
does.
I guess you can buy a bunch of WoW tokies, right?
I was gonna say.
But like I think that the game is not one of the like whale supported games which are out there, right? Like
it does not entice whales.
Exactly. It's not like aiming to hook whales, and it's not one of those ecosystems where it's like, yeah, we are going to have 99 non-whales paying a little bit, but mostly being there to make an ecosystem that makes whales want to play and then extract money from them. Like there are a lot of mobile games like that, and
that is the mobile game model.
Yeah,
all of them. Yeah.
And WoW is not that, but finding more ways to extract more money from more people with stuff like premium $90 content, I think is definitely something that they're going to experiment with. And I don't know. I am sad because it's not pay to win really, but it's also not like not pay to win to get an auction house and a mailbox and a mount. Like it is, this is a game where oftentimes time is valuable and quality of life is time, and this is quality of life. So, a couple steps of the transitive property, this is pay to win.
I mean, you can also buy a WoW token and buy a BOE.
True.
And skip some crests you would have to spend.
Absolutely.
And get access to eye level earlier, and you will have a stronger character. The question is, what are you winning at?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's the whole pay to win thing is one. I think like there's only, well, again, pay to win should have like so many different levels to it. Cause like, let's just say, okay, by default, you can buy something off the auction house. You can buy 2 items that are BOEs to make your character stronger. Okay, so this game is pay to win. And then you would also label a game where you can spend actually $100,000 to get a stronger character than someone else.
Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, exactly. And like that is if you're labeling both of those two things pay to win, I feel like there should just be different terminology, because like those are not the same thing,
Yeah.
I think like the closest pay to WoW ever was a pay to win had to be Nyalotha, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it depends on how you define it a little bit, because if you're not going for world first, there's like pay to win of just buying boosts, right? Like if your goal is to get cutting edge, congratulations, swipe enough times and you can pay however many million for the couple guilds in the world that can sell Ansurek
isn't
right
that
now.
If you use that argument, isn't literally every game in the world pay to win?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
You could just pay someone to beat the game for you.
No. I mean, it's not the same though, because I mean, one of them is like supported in game, and another one is like you're doing a third party, or it's like something that's against the TOS, which is like you're basically cheating versus pay to win. And I think that's where the distinction comes from. You can say like, oh yeah, like if you play League of Legends, you just get someone to boost your account, but that's like clearly against the TOS, and that's.
I mean, there wasn't a WoW token in WoW Classic, and the amount of gold buying through third party, like basically my argument would be legitimizing buying gold in WoW versus having it being done by third parties does not increase or decrease that. The most powerful sales ever was like Fireland's 10-man mount runs or challenge mode carries, which were bought and piloted for probably in total millions of dollars, easily millions of dollars. And that was all before the WoW token ever existed. I just, as someone who has been punished for this and has run a bunch of these carries myself and was part of that industry, right? Like I don't think the WoW token enabled carries. I think that entire thing happened at the same rate before that was ever introduced. So the fact that they legitimized it with the WoW token doesn't mean anything to me, because it didn't change anything.
This reminds me a little bit.
To you, might not mean anything, but I think to a lot of people it means a lot. To me, it matters a lot.
I agree. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the distinction people are drawing between the 5 million gold Brutosaur and the $90 Brutosaur, because objectively, it is cheaper. The $90 Brutosaur is cheaper, right? It's cheaper if you want to buy it. 5 times
cheaper.
If you have gold and you want to buy it with gold, it's a lot cheaper. And if you have dollars and you want to buy it with dollars, it's even cheaper because you don't have to pay the conversion fee on your tokens. So it's like either way, whichever way you're buying it with, it's cheaper. But because that end currency that you're using is your BNet balance dollars or your US dollars instead of converting that to gold first, it feels like that's the one that's being, power being sold for dollars. And the 5 million gold one was like an in-game gold sink, right? So in the same sort of way, like buying a boost illegally through RMT or through, buying a boost with dollars through some sketchy, illegal TOS breaking thing versus doing it in TOS, that I think is even more different. Like that definitely feels different to be playing a game where it's like, oh, this has this problem of people cheating versus, oh, this is a supported, way to play this game. Those are two more different things to me than the Brutosaurs, for instance.
Yeah.
with some upside.
Yeah,
For people who play WoW a lot and have a lot of gold, the ability to create infinite WoW gold into
absolutely.
an absolute infinite amount of fake BNet balance funny money and never pay for any games or on WoW
Yeah.
or your sub is also insanely good, right?
I agree. Again, I'm not trying to make an anti-WoW token argument. I'm just saying that is one of the downsides, and it is one way that WoW is. It I think reasonably feels more pay to win with the WoW token than a game that was fighting boosting as like a core of its TOS or whatever. I think it would be stupid to move in that direction for WoW. I think unless they were willing to hire rather than fire a bunch of people that would be like trying to police that stuff, it would just clearly not work and backfire. But
I have a thought about the thing. You actually mentioned this earlier, but like, what do you think the community reaction would have been differently in these two scenarios? The scenario where that mount was not announced for $90 last week, but it was announced for 1.5 million gold, and it was going away in January instead of the end of the expansion, which is what the case was in BFA. And then also, what would the reaction have been in BFA if instead of that mount being 5 million gold, it was like $500?
Yeah.
And what would, even though what I just said, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that would be crazy. Everything I just said is exactly the same as what they are. There's no difference in $500 and 5 million gold. You can transition them both ways. And the same thing with if it was 1.5 million gold or $90, right? So like, why? Like, do you guys think the reaction would have been majorly different?
1000%.
yeah, 100%.
So you're saying
I
that
don't
most
think
of
it's
the
even a question
negative.
about it.
So you're saying that most of the negative sentiment from that comes from misinformation or being
it's not information. It's like the perception. Perception is like the bigger part.
So
like,
most of the people who are mad were only mad because of a perception, not because of what it actually was.
Yeah, because I mean, like, there are like steps in between when you're having to like convert tokens into gold, and then like you have to do like this whole process. And I mean, there were plenty of people. Like the WoW token was sold out for the entirety of the week that the Brutal Sword was out. So, like, clearly people were already doing that. It's just there were steps in between, and just like the whole idea of you can just swipe your credit card and instantly get a mount for $500 or however much it is just like so much ickier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wonder if Blizzard could go back, would they have actually just put this in game for 1.5 mil? I don't know. And it goes away in 3 months, which is
It definitely would not have sold as much. That's how I see it.
interesting.
Yeah, like I don't think as many people would care.
I think so as well. I think
token, but
That's
like, they want
interesting.
to just be able to like, because like to a lot of people, like if they could just able to just like press a button and just instantly give amounts, that's like so much less friction than having to like, all right, I gotta buy tokens, and after I buy tokens, I gotta list them and I gotta sell them. And
So
then I
you're
have to,
saying
like,
that
go
it's
buy it.
actually gracious by Blizzard that they released this for $90 and not for 1.5 mil in game because
Well, but at the same time, I'm sure there are plenty of people who feel upset that they're compelled to buy it. At least that's how I feel, Like if it was just gold, then like I wouldn't feel as compelled to swipe my card. Well, I mean, I would just flat out bought it with gold, but
yeah, obviously it would be better
it's
if
like,
you
all right.
had 1.5 mil to be able to just buy it straight up
Yeah,
rather than
yeah.
having to buy WoW tokens, especially given they were bought out. Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those situations that just kind of highlights. It's not so much irrationality because the friction is real. Like spending 10 extra minutes to convert is annoying. Like that's genuinely annoying and
Or a
not
lot
something
longer than
everybody
that
even
if
knows
you
about. Yeah, if you were
couldn't do
trying to
it.
buy, yeah, exactly. Like it's I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, I'm like pretty deep into the whole pay to win stuff because like that's been one of my crusades I've tried to fight back in the days, right? Because like I've told you guys before that I come from like playing Korean MMO background, right? So like I have a huge aversion to pay to win, and pay to win is like it's kind of like a buzzword. Like it just basically means buying player power. Like the way I've seen WoW is like WoW has always been pay to win for me. Now obviously people always gonna say like, oh, but like what are you winning? And people always try to draw these different lines and goalposts. They do the same in Lost Ark. Like when Lost Ark came out, everyone's gonna call that game pay to win, right? But there are Lost Ark players, Lost Ark defenders that'll be like, well, what are you winning? Like all you're doing is you're just fighting NPCs, right? It's not like you can use it in PvP. You can't kill other players with it. All you're doing is you're just like you're doing your own. You're just doing dungeon bosses. Like what's the winning? You're not winning shit. You could spend like $20,000 and you probably still wouldn't be able to kill a certain boss. So the way I see it is like pay to win literally just means paying to get player power, and people fucking hate that because like competitive players like me, we care about being able to be on like a fair playing field. You don't want to have one person coming into your MMO and spending $100 and just gaining like a 1% advantage, whether it's from buying a BOE or like buying some shit from the store, or like someone who spends like $10,000 and just like gets a free boost. Like it's all the same shit.
Well, I think it's intentionally not available on the store, right? I mean, it's always weird with gold in the marketplace because like you could say, okay, is buying a BOE pay to win? I think we're all kind of in line with like yes, right?
It's
Okay,
weird though.
but
It's like capped pay to win, right? Like it's like there's 2 slots that have, I guess,
It's
3
pay
if
for
you count the
advantage.
And they might not even be
basically.
okay. Sure. Okay. Well, in the same way, wouldn't like buying, crafting an item with an embellishment on it pay to win? Because you're still paying gold for something in the auction house that you could have gotten on your own. Like it's weird when it's intertwined with the WoW marketplace. You know, like
Yeah, it's because you don't have to put in any time and effort into it. Like all of it just comes from outside of the game, and that's what makes it. So,
Yeah, but if it's something like each tier, you can spend a few $100K to do your crafting, and then like a mil to buy a BOE or 2. Like that's pretty capped, right? And those are numbers of gold that are achievable through herbing for a couple of hours here or there, right? Like those, it's not one of those cases where it's like this is a game that you have
Exactly.
to pay IRL
Well, I mean, the
dollars
most
to be
extreme
competitive in.
end is you can just buy boosting, right? Like you just
yeah.
like, go
But if,
Yeah.
if you're
use
doing the buying
maximum,
boosting argument,
give
that's,
Certainly,
that is
if,
like
yeah, we'll accept that
that is an
counts.
argument that cannot be argued against because
Yeah.
any game is
Yeah,
pay to
because
win.
it's a core part. Well, I mean, but that's like a core part of WoW, because like
Mm-hmm.
it comes from like it's legitimized. Like if boosting was not allowed, I would not be doing this shit. I would be like very afraid of like boosting. But
Yeah, okay,
it's
but
something
you're-
that like everyone does in the game.
You're on the selling
Because
side of
it's
boosting
allowed.
in WoW, right? If you were in
Yeah.
Lost Ark, you would be on the buying side of any pay to win stuff, right? Like
Well,
WoW
no,
does
in
not.
Lost Ark, there's also a lot of selling too. A lot.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Sell
but like
characters a ton,
you would
and
be
you get a ton
spending
of gold.
dollars to be more powerful in Lost Ark, right?
Well, no. So Lost
Mm-hmm.
Ark equivalent would be you're selling Mythic Ansurek,
Okay.
and with all that gold you piled up, next patch you can just buy like all the base gear for.
So-
Or you can pay
For,
for
like,
thousands
for
of people to
Xalatath.
come
Were
trade you
you
gear.
were
for the
you a
first
free to
2 weeks.
play player in your Korean MMOs, Dorky?
Oh yeah, in all of them. I fucking hated the idea of spending any money in games.
Okay, yeah. My suspicion is that among like high end players, like if you surveyed top 50 guilds in WoW, probably almost all of the top 50 guilds in WoW people are people for whom like the WoW token for them lets them play for free, right? For like half of those
Yeah.
people in the guild, and then the other half are just like, yeah, I'll pay the sub and get the extra gold, right? And like that's the main dynamic of it in WoW. I think that in games that to me feel like the ones further on that play to win scale are the ones where I would feel like if I was playing them, I would want to spend money, which WoW isn't like that. But I felt like looking at the Lost Ark monetization system that like, okay, this doesn't look like it would be that fun to be a free to play player in, and like this looks like a game where I would want to pay to use these transactions if I was trying to actually play it, and therefore I don't want to play it.
Yeah,
which-
I think for like the buyers, it's more of they're mostly needing gold for the minimums, like you've said. Dratnos.
Yeah.
Like they just need to be able to buy the embellishments, and
Right.
like, they just need like basically like 1 mil gold, like a small loan of $1 million. That'd
Exactly.
be enough for them. Because like that's actually all my friends who came back to the game. Like all my friends who came back to the game, they always talking about how like, oh, I'm so fucking poor, like I can't craft this embellishment and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just out here sitting with like tens of millions of gold, and I don't worry about this at all. But like for all my friends who are playing a lot more casually, they're in the struggle bus. Like they
Yeah.
need that gold bad, and all they need is like just a couple of WoW tokens, and it'd be enough for a patch. But
I agree
having to
that
spend
is
all that
like
money
I think that the
kind of sucks.
crafting prices this expansion were bad. I think that those being that high was bad for sure.
Well,
enchants too.
it just to me
I think they
I don't know,
wanted
it's hard
that.
to
I mean, it's definitely. I don't think they did the profession thing to incentivize WoW token purchase. I don't think because that money isn't going to that gold isn't going to Blizzard. That gold is going to profession. That is going to another player, right? So like you have the opportunity to spend your like inspiration or whatever that's called as a caster or as a crafter to like get that gold as well. Unless the
Yeah.
cartel's still going on. I don't
and,
know. if
well,
that's
and
still a
every
thing.
time somebody buys a WoW token, $5 are going to old Blizzy Wizzy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's intended still, but the WoW token purchasing has definitely gone up this expansion. I mean, you can tell by the price of the tokens. Like anytime the tokens are low, that means a lot of people are buying it. And this expansion is probably at all-time high in terms of purchases. And I think that's strictly due to the scarcity of materials. Because a lot of people are struggling to get their enchants and gems.
And that just goes back to like needing to know their financials, you know? like to me, finding different ways to monetize your game, if it means making your game viable or to increase profit from very small to small, is fine. If it's like a pig rolling in shit, you know, just like absolutely caked in money, and then you're also just to increase profits and give money to executives, you're firing a bunch of people from their very needed jobs and stuff. That's like that. I like look at that really negatively, but I also just don't know. Like them being a part of Microsoft doesn't mean that their product that they are creating is super successful, right? Like that all has to be in line for a big company like that.
I mean, there were people in Microsoft working on Bing for years.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even Bing, didn't they do something recently with Bing? They like wasn't Bing the first people to like add AI directly to Bing or something like that? It's like
they're just smart ideas after smart ideas over there. It's crazy. It's just I don't know what happened.
Yeah. But yeah, like because them firing people, that to me is a signal of there's a fire that needs to be put out. Or at least if you're running a business correctly, that's what sounds like that to me. Like we're not doing well, so we need to figure out a way to because everyone wants WoW to do well, right? Because if WoW goes under, the game goes away, all of us are not happy, right? So like you want WoW to do well, but like the thing that you fear is, oh, they're actually not struggling for money. It's just like this guy got like this CEO got a $20 million pay raise, and someone had to go for that. Let's just fire all of these nice people, and that would make me despise them, right? So I just wish I do. This is the PoddyC official announcement. Publish those financials, baby.
Yeah.
They'll definitely
if anybody
do that.
wants to leak them to us as well, if anybody has any top secret corporate secrets that they want to leak to us, send them our way. Okay, I think we've yapped for a sufficient amount of time. Now, here's another thing. Much as I was praising Fronk earlier, he didn't leave us a Patreon question for this episode. So there's no Patreon question this week. That's
Ooh, let's make one up.
make one up. All right. Yeah.
Be a Patreon.
Sorry, all right, I have one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So this has kind of been discussed a lot. Hold on,
Who's the Patreon question from?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're going to be a Patreon question,
Yeah,
you should ask
hold
us
on.
how to deal with problem raiders, or like, what were the couple greatest
Raid
hits we
buffs?
keep getting?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on raid?
Holy
Well,
fuck.
I have a cook. I have a cook for raid buffs. What if they made all of them different than how they are now, but also you only needed one of each, but they could be from different classes, and there was also they all gave a 1% buff, and it was based on the number of unique classes in your raid, and yeah. Thank you, love the PoddyC. That was my Patreon question for raid buffs. Isn't
that just the Final Fantasy system?
Yeah.
No, I was just throwing like all the buzzwords that people put in the question, all the different, because everybody thinks they have a cook for raid buffs, and it's always the same one, and it's always Blizzard's never going to do this because they don't want to.
Because warriors need to have battle cry.
Yeah, exactly.
All that stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, we don't want to talk about raid buffs.
Okay,
is the
Dorki,
point.
what's your
Dorki,
real
Yeah.
Patreon question?
Oh man, I don't know how to word it.
Oh, we can talk about Plunderstorm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the announcement to bring it back? Because I have some thoughts about a lot of the criticisms that people have had of it as well.
Ooh, okay.
I am excited. I think Plunderstorm is cool. It's interesting because I think a pretty common criticism of it is, why is it the same map? But I feel like changing the map is like a lot of that's probably like 60% of the work of doing the Plunderstorm. Maybe not. Maybe it's like 30% of the work that went into Plunderstorm
I think your
Highlands.
first number was right.
Well, because like they had to come up with all the abilities and the mobs and those mechanics and stuff, which I assume is a lot. But yeah, I mean, making the map converted for it and stuff was
making the map keeping most of that, but then making a new map, the map becomes
it would be a huge amount of work versus
like
not.
It becomes like 80% of the work.
Yes,
Yeah.
if they were to do a new map, that would be almost all of the new work of it, whereas this is just re-enabling it and making sure it's not too buggy or whatever, making sure that whatever random bug they put into the base game hasn't somehow broken Plunderstorm, even though they're different branches or whatever.
That would be funny.
That just happens in WoW. You change one thing and then some random other thing breaks. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I thought Plunderstorm was sick. I have definitely had days where I've wanted to play Plunderstorm and been sad that it's not been there. I haven't had that many of those days, so I do think that if they had it year round, it would probably be like kind of dead queues. So I do think it probably is good for it to come somewhat recently, or
it is absolutely good. It is good that it's infrequent, and it is good that it hasn't been out this whole time, and it is good that it'll be limited time again when they said they're going to release it.
Yeah, it's also good that there are new rewards behind it so that we can get more gas runners to absolutely farm.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to listen to any of our suggestions from last time. Maybe they've had them internally, but it's like, I feel like the best one that I've heard is like there's just a daily hub in game, and like that can also contribute to your renown, because like the Plunderstorm lovers don't even have to engage with that because you're going to get it all for free from game, but for all the people who hate it, you don't have to do it, and you can just do all the dailies in game. But you're right, that would be significantly less people to farm. But
yeah, I mean that would kill it.
That would not kill it at all.
Well, it would make it, a lot less people playing.
It's like really good.
Issues.
I would have issues.
I'm definitely excited for it too.
Yeah, that was my main takeaway, Dratnos, as well. As I saw the announcement, and it was all just, I can't believe there's not a new map. And I think I understand where that's coming from. But as like some background on me, the two things I've done the most is like play WoW #1, and then it's like play Battle Royales, which is #2. Battle Royales map changing is the most like overrated thing of all time. Like of all the time I spent on PUBG, I could have spent that all on the main map and it would have been better. When I started playing Apex, I would just take me back to King's Canyon and not all this new shit. Like the new maps are good, but it's like so unimportant. It is just about having a good map and optimizing that map. Like that map needed a lot of work on like the drop locations. Like you always wanted to drop left and all the stuff on the right sucked. And like that, they can revamp that. There's so much they can revamp in the mode. They can make the little like gold guy that like he just died over time. That entire thing could be
made the opulence thing was so weird.
That could be made way more interesting. There are so many more cooks you could do in a mode like that, and I think all the focus should be on that and not the map, especially because when they brought this initially, this was not, oh, this thing's going to be a huge hit and we're going to bring it back in the future. It was really good, so they did bring it back in the future, but we just talked earlier about how these designers, they're not hiring many more of them, are working on things super far ahead of time because they're trying to do way too much shit, right? So Plunderstorm was like, they realized 8 months ago, they're like, oh, we have to recreate Plunderstorm again. What's a way we can actually do that? Oh, making a new map is going to cost this much time. Okay, that can't happen. Let's just do whatever we can with the time we have and like revamp and stuff. I think it's probably just that simple. Like if we're getting a new map in Plunderstorm, we're also getting it in like the end of next year or something, right? And I don't, from a seasoned battle royale player, I can tell you that is not worth it. Like in WoW, there's a lot of cool zones to explore for people, but as far as the gameplay of it, and I know I'm more gameplay oriented than other people, but like as far as the gameplay, like the new maps are way overrated in anything BR related. So I'm actually glad they're not changing the map, but I hope they do in the future. Like imagine doing it in like Ardenweald or like
Maldraxxus could go kind of crazy. That zone's kind of perfect for a BR, I think.
Yeah,
Hellfire Peninsula.
Hellfire Peninsula, yeah. As long as there's not too many trees, I think that was the thing that WoW is not good with trees. So that was one thing they mentioned is
actually that's one thing I'm not really considering. Like, in BRs, when PUBG releases, you only know the original map.
Yeah.
But like in WoW, they release a battle royale in WoW.
You actually know the map. You have familiarity with the zones.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there's so many other maps it could be that are really fucking cool and mean something to you that like you're like, oh, this thing's like right there. You can just do it. My suspicion is it's probably even more work than we thought, because like you have to make mobs and they have to have abilities that are like kind of thematic to the zone they're in, which could be different depending on what zone you're doing. Like apparently they had to like deforest a ton of the zone. There was just like a lot of the zones in the game, there's just too many trees and like that wouldn't work. And like clipping through the world, these abilities have never been, you have to make sure Firestorm works on your map and it's not instantly going to like clip you under the world doing some fast tornado shit. Like I imagine it's just a ton of work. What would your all's top 3 like Plunderstorm zones be? Or like what's your favorite if they could do one?
Huh. I do think Maldraxxus.
Yeah,
I've always thought Maldraxxus would go hard because it's like it's supposed to be like a combat zone, place, and it's I don't know. It does. I think it has the worst aesthetic of the Shadowlands zones for like WoW gameplay, but
Yeah, my thing is the aesthetics up.
yeah, the problem is the colors are bland in there. It's like it literally colored like vanilla. It's so maybe not. I don't
So
know.
an example of a bad one would be like the other zone, Revendreth. Like it's just too vertical.
Oh yeah, that's way too vertical. Yeah, you can't do that.
Verticality is cool though. It's hard to do.
You would need to revamp the mechanics to have
you could
verticality
have little
matter.
items. You could have little items that like a Fortnite jump pad.
Dude, that speaking of which, like that's the thing. Fortnite was going to be my example because you were talking about PUBG having a bunch of different maps. What Fortnite does is they just do the same map, and then every season it's like, oh my god, Loot Lake has been boiled up, and now there's like they destroyed Tomato Town, right? And it's like this is something in the map has changed. Like that could be a cool thing. It's just like, oh my god, you're telling me the Zandalari have destroyed Stromgarde and it's on fire now this season of Plunderstorm? Like that could be a cool thing they could do.
Actually, I think they might do that. That sounds
Yeah.
like kind of a slam dunk. I wonder if they spend some time looking at like more recent BR successes and they would do that. I mean, also Apex did the same thing.
Yeah.
They like brought Kings Canyon back with was it Skull Town or whatever it was called, and they like burned up that place, which sucks by the way because it was like by far the best place to land and
Yeah,
and fight
I think
people.
that's why they did that.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
But,
Shake it up.
but that's so stupid though. Like this
No,
is
they
the
wanted
best
to shake
place
it
to
up,
land
man.
and fight. Yeah, but like why?
Well, they don't
if
want there
you
to be a
have-
best place to land.
I think maybe a separate discussion, but I just feel like removing the really, really cool place that people like isn't as good as like making the other places more attractive to land. Like you aspire for everywhere to land to be great. And maybe you do make everything else great, but still everyone landed Skull Town and it sucks, so you just need to remove it.
It's interesting because in Apex, it's like fighting early is kind of fun. Like a fight in the first 2 minutes of Apex is kind of sick. Where in Plunder, that's not true. In Plunder, if you
That is
land
not
and
true.
somebody is fighting you, you are so mad. And
Yeah, you're like
they
you're
gotta fix
wasting
that
both
too.
of our times.
Yeah. They got to
Yeah, there's a
rebalance
lot
that.
of like base things to fix, I think, in the game.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
happy. I'm gonna go so hard in that game.
Yeah, love Plunder,
Hey,
dude.
I hope there's another Plunderstorm tournament and Dratnos is not invited. That'd be
There's,
sick.
ow,
What the fuck?
this.
I'm just kidding.
Dude, that did suck though. That did suck.
Yeah,
Dratnos was
that
like,
did
I feel
suck.
bad for
It
Dratnos.
was like Isaiah
Yeah.
Thomas in that Michael Jordan documentary. The like I met all the criteria, but I wasn't selected. Like that meme.
I mean, it's all good. These things
CDU
happen.
as well.
A lot of I would have invited CDU over me and stuff like the PvPers that were playing a bunch, but I think they didn't know when they were making the invite lists like which content creators were going to do Plunder and which weren't. So that I don't know. Either way, I think that I'm mostly sad that for the next like 2 months there's not a lot of stuff. I guess there's so for those who don't know, I also play a bunch of ARPGs. Path of Exile 1 isn't going to have another league this year, and Path of Exile 2 got its early access delayed to like December instead of November. So I just got no ARPGs for the next month. Last Epoch isn't putting one out because they didn't want to compete with PoE 2, I think, and now it's PoE 2 is delayed and Last Epoch is delayed, and D4 obviously is like I think I'm winding down for the season on D4. I finished the battle pass and everything and killed all the bosses and stuff, and my build feels kind of done. So I'm just going to be without an ARPG for 2 months of farm, which is always a bad place to be. So I'm sad.
Yeah, that is
Push keys.
I don't know, man.
MDI's tomorrow, isn't that your job?
MDI's tomorrow. That's true. That's exciting. Yeah, we haven't
I
talked
bet
about
you guys
MDI a
would
lot.
love- Yeah, I bet our chat would love to hear us talk about that.
Yeah, I actually am pretty excited to see MDI. It is a little weird because a lot of good teams are missing this one. Like obviously Echo breaking apart or not playing is the headline there, but just the total number of like veteran returning teams is very low this time. So that's interesting. I think it's just because of timing, because it's like right after Prague or during Prague for a lot of good players. But yeah, I'm of course hyped for MDI. I know that we don't want to turn this podcast into the every week we talk about MDI or TGP thing.
Oh, I won't let that happen. I'm completely uninterested in anything MDI related. I don't know what changed, but like I just like last expansion, 2 expansions ago, I was like super into it. Last expansion, I was into it, and it was dwindling in every season. And by the end of it, I didn't even show up to watch it.
What about TGP? Like, are you excited for TGP when that comes out in a couple
I
months?
don't know enough
it comes
people. I don't know enough about any of the teams
Okay.
to like get invested. I feel like as a viewer, I don't know. I'm just kind of over it. But I know Dorky, you're probably gonna be into it. You're watch partying it, right? You've got to be.
I mean, I'm curious to see what happens, but I don't expect much. It's like you guys have been saying, like there's
Like
just
who's
not
in
a
this
lot
tournament tomorrow? What teams?
all I know is perplexed. That's literally all I know tomorrow.
Yeah,
There's
like that's
miscount
like,
as well. Yeah.
Oh, Miss Count's playing tomorrow.
how
too.
many
Nice.
teams qualify?
3 qualify out of the group.
And there's only
Well, it's
two
16
teams.
total teams, right?
So yeah,
And
there's
there's
16 teams made into 2 groups, each of which has 3 qualifying to finals, and then there's 2 from China as well to make an 8 team finals.
I like China being involved. That's good.
Yeah.
But the that's actually interesting. But the like that's kind of where you lose me as a viewer tomorrow, right? Is okay. So there's 3 spots to qualify, and there's only 2 teams that I would have known before and care about as a viewer that likes to watch people compete at a high level.
Yeah.
And that you've known that have been around for a while. I'm not saying any of the other teams aren't good enough to care about. It's like as a viewer, you need to care about the people on the teams and the teams to care about what you're watching. And like, okay, so the 2 teams that I know and have been there are probably going to qualify and face maybe some not great competition. Maybe they will. Don't want to disparage any of the competitors, but like, what am I missing if I don't tune in tomorrow? Right? That's kind of maybe what it is. Like that, I think a lot of people who are complaining about, oh man, every MDI is boring because Echo just fucking wins every time. It's so boring, which is also just like not even true. Like they've been like in fierce competition with mandatory for like 2 years. But like even when you say that, you don't even ask for what you're saying. Like you don't want to lose Echo, man. You don't want to lose one of the teams that people actually know who the fucking players are and like can care about them and follow them, right? So like that's in my opinion, Echo not playing is a fucking colossal loss for the MDI. Like I think the viewership overall is going to be a bit lower, but I would also like to be wrong about that. Hopefully people still care, but
The bigger problem is there's no new teams or new talent or new blood, whatever you want to call it. Like there's none of that in MDI, and it's even worse than ever before.
I think MDI is cool, and I'm excited to see what happens this time around. Should be very poggers to watch. Everybody make sure to tune in. Twitch.tv/Warcraft, YouTube.com/Warcraft. It's going to be fun.
This guy's paid, by the way.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I am excited to see like at least what people end up doing. Like I'm curious to see what comps are
Yeah.
played. I'm curious to see what types of strategies people
It
do
is
for
actually
these new
sick
dungeons.
that it's like 3 days after a major tuning update, 10 days after a patch that just threw tuning to across the wall.
Speaking of which, that's actually another topic too. People have been complaining about how frequent the tuning has been and how much the classes have been getting reworked. I think people are getting sick and tired of the 0.5 reworks. This might have been like a Patreon question in the past, but
wait,
people are
the
starting to,
competitors
really
in the
not
MDI,
be
you're
happy.
saying, right?
Yes, I think that's
not just
the
competitors
set
in
of
the
player
AI,
base
but
doesn't
also
like
like
this.
also the bottom rerollers. You know how like there's a ton of bottom rerollers out there.
Yeah, if you're like
They're
pushing
just
keys
not
or
happy
whatever.
with the
Yeah, no,
idea
I mean,
of-
I actually found out that this group of people exists, that they're like super prevalent. And it's like every patch, you see a bunch of people complain that like the balance isn't super good because they played the one class and they want their one class to get invited to keys. And then what a lot of those people don't understand is there's a massive amount of people that don't care what class they play. In fact, they actually like when different classes are meta every season because it gives them variety. It means they can learn a new spec and try something new. And they actually look forward to that. And those are the people that Dorky is talking about that are getting annoyed. They're like, oh, I just rolled. Like, imagine if you actually care about playing the best class and get invited, and then that thing gets nerfed, and then you're like leveling that new alt or whatever, and then you're just like, oh, so I have to farm 700 Gilded crests to get back to where my other major. Okay, so like that's not happening. So like I can see that being annoying.
Yeah.
a lot of bottom rerollers are not happy with how frequent the tuning is, which is kind of crazy because this is
Yeah.
something we've been asking for forever.
If you teleport
I was
back
actually
like
watching a
3
review.
years ago, everybody's biggest point was just
Yeah.
like, please tune the game more frequently. Please don't leave us in this meta for
I
6
still
months.
feel like people are majorly still what Dratnos just said, though.
Yeah,
I don't think-
for the record, I think most people are happy to see frequent tuning.
I think it's an extreme minority of people
Yeah.
that would be saying like, please
Yeah.
stop tuning the game. That's a
Well-
crazy thought.
the bigger complaint, I think, is how much of a play style for certain classes are changing, or when their stat priority changes. Like I've seen a lot of complaints about that. It's like, oh, you know, I'm playing a mage and like I geared for haste and versatility, and all of a sudden like I'm having to play mastery and, you know, some crit now, and it's like that part kind of throws a lot of people off, and like we don't like having all of your progression go down the drain, or like feel like they've wasted certain vaults or like certain crests upgrading certain stuff.
That is fair.
So I can see that, you know, or they just like don't like how their class is changing nonstop and there's no consistent way to play the class. I've heard this from mages, and I've heard this from, I forgot what other spec was.
Ellie Shaman
There's another
changed
spec
mastery to be good with the rework, which was like never true before. So I think that's cool though. I think the mastery stat is fun, and one of the nerfs they reverted would have nerfed mastery, and now they've reverted that nerf to Ellie. So mastery's still good, which is cool. I think it's a cool mastery. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've rambled about sufficient topics for this week. I think that's about it for the old PoddyC. We will be back next week with another PoddyC. But until then, goodbye. Oh, wait. Stick around, patrons, though, for the bonus episode. Ooh, bonus Patreon content where we are going to start a fight with The Bench, our competitor podcast.
That is true.
Our rival podcast. Yes, we will be beefing with them in the bonus episode. So stay tuned for that, patrons, and the rest of you non-patrons. Enjoy your
blow up.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy your scraps of free content here on this channel. Know that
Happy
the real
Halloweens.
juicy drama is for paying customers only. You shouldn't have wasted your money on that Brutosaur.
Edit that part.
That's true.
Yeah. All right, Poddy,
All right.
bye.
Bye.